Trump administration has been approaching automakers like Ford and General Motors to make weapon production. They want the automakers to basically do what they did in World War II and play a larger role in weapons production, to ramp up their weapons manufacturing to do this instead of cars. I mean, they'll still make cars, but not as much, I guess. I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe they'll just increase capacity for these weapons. But this is not a good sign, because when they ask them to amp up weapons production from an automaker, that's a bad sign. And something that they did in World War II is not seeming as good of an idea in 2026, unless we're going into another world war. Apparently, they've been growing concerned because of the Ukraine and Russia war, but it's not just that. Here's an infantry squad vehicle that's made by General Motors. The Trump administration has been approaching...
Shalom, Yasha Allah. First and foremost, I'd like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Chachadash. Double honors to beloved elders and the apostles at Great Millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful that document out there laboring, that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. This is your brother Amar from the GMS Boise, Idaho camp. And I'm doing this lesson, based on, the prophecy that it speaks so loudly, and the fact that this is such a red flag for showing you that war is coming, I always remember watching, the History Channel when I was a little kid, and they would always talk about the wartime effort, during World War II. And what the wartime effort in Babylon, in the United States, looked like was that all the recycling, extra metals that was coming from households was going towards these factories. Jeep itself was started by a weapons manufacturing quota that needed to be met by the United States government during World War II. This is, yes, the Jeep was created specifically for World War II in 1940, 1941 to meet the U.S. Army's need for a light 4x4 reconnaissance vehicle. Developed by Willys Overland, Ford, and Bantam, the Willys MB became the standard, iconic model used in all theaters of war by Allied forces. So again, and this is the picture that they're showing you. This is a very famous Jeep. They have it in all these museums. But what it's showing you is that history is repeating itself. Like the famous quote goes, history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So the point being is that these different companies that are being told to make these weapons, and this is a confirmed, thing that the government is actually going out and telling these different manufacturers. So what does that in the scriptures tell us? That these nations are getting ready for war. And obviously, the main scriptures that should come to your mind is Joel 3, and I'm going to go straight to there. And I wanted to make this quick because, man, when I saw those articles, and I seen this actually a couple days ago, but the Spirit got me doing the lesson on it now, was doing lessons on other things and sit downs with brothers and et cetera, et cetera. But the information is coming out now if you haven't heard it, but this is very, important when it comes to the type of mentality that you see a nation getting ready for. And that's all these nations are getting ready for war. This is Joel 3:9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. And that's what they're doing. They're preparing their wartime machines, and that's what's called the military industrial complex. And that's the only thing that Babylon the Great, America, actually does export more than import. Continuing, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. And that's what we see going on in these other nations. You had a decree go out in Germany that all the fighting aged males cannot leave the country, or they cannot leave the country for more than 3 months. You have the draft that's being instituted for all males ages 18 to 26 that is automatically going to be enrolled this December. So what these are showing you is that there's no hiding that a great war, let's say, that is coming. And whether you believe the Bible or not, you can see how this man is moving. He's getting ready for something big. So whether you believe that what the prophets are saying is not, we really don't give a fuck, man. We don't care what you people believe. We're here to give a message. And when your life gets replayed before your eyes because you're fucking bleeding out in a trench, because you ran across a prophet from Great Millstone, a brother, a teacher, a pastor, an elder, a bishop, a brother that was breaking it down, and for whatever situation you scoffed him, you mocked him, or you didn't believe him because you didn't have no faith. Hey man, you're going to be thinking of these moments and these little videos in your last seconds of your days, man, wishing you could have done something different, or positioned yourself in another way to where you didn't have to receive a judgment when Yahushua cracks those clouds in the so-called Middle East, where he's in the East, where he's going to make his appearance. In the Middle East, is just a reference to the Valley of Jehoshaphat area, the Levant region over there in the so-called Middle East, as most people know it today. But this is continuing. Verse 10, Joel 3 and 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So the weak saying that they are strong, we know that that's a direct reference to these other nations getting nuclear capabilities. Beat your plowshares into swords. Plowshares is a representation of an agricultural instrument, something that you're not going out and unaliving people with. You're growing, you're cultivating, you're growing a civilization because you're getting food. And more food means more, you can sustain more people, which means growth and prosperity. Well, that's not what's going on right now, man. These nations are getting ready to turn the plowshares metal that they had into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So these nations are getting weaponized. What is this? Recycling for the war effort. World War II propaganda. Look at these posters, man, because they were doing the same thing. It says, get it in the scrap. America's war industries need metal, paper, old rags, rubber. It says, look, these are all the different Salakia, propaganda posters that they were showing you. Don't burn waste paper, save your scrap. They were telling you to save your oil. Everybody was getting get ready for the war effort. Look how many posters these are. Cardboard paper. I saw one that said, mothers, don't get rid of your oil grease or your grease, because they were using the fat and the grease to make bombs. Recycling. Here, I'll show it. Recycling grease for the war effort. Look at this. I can't make this up. Look, your kitchen waste fats needed for explosives. Defense needs rubber. Save your tires. Kitchen waste. Look, this is save waste fats for explosives. Take them to your meat dealer. These were real posters that were going on. Look, has a little, what that is. Hopefully I don't get flagged for that. But these are the posters that they were using to get the people here at home part of the war effort. So that is just a many examples of, like I said, the famous quote is, and I can't remember who said it. I could probably look it up, but he said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. I said, this is the second time I said it. I'm just going to go ahead and get that quote. History doesn't repeat itself, but, Mark Twain. Okay. I knew it was someone like that. It says, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Mark Twain. Okay. So as you can see, that's what's going on right now. And this is all spoken of in the scriptures. So there's no excuse, because everybody got a Bible in their house. Everybody got a dusty Bible on grandma's nightstand. Whatever it is, man. This truth has gone out. This is Joel 3 and 11. Assemble yourselves. This is these armies getting organized. These are the alliances being made. Assembling yourselves means these different nations are coming together. They're seeing who their real enemy is. We saw that the world turned against the little hats in Babylon when the Strait of Hormuz was being closed, man. All the other countries were able to go through except them. This is continuing. And come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord, Yahweh. And that's going into, hey, man, these nations are all going to take part in that third world war. And we can see that that's happening, in real time. When that exchange was going on in Iran, they said that they had 26 countries actively participating in military operations over there in the so-called Middle East. So it's already a world war going on. Not to mention Xi Jinping that went out and said they will destroy America and Israel if they go against stopping their free trade over there in the Middle East. And these countries like China used to never talk like that. And that's why Babylon the Great is having to supercharge its industrial complex here in Babylon the Great, because we don't build anything. Everything got a tag that says made in China, hecho en Mexico, made in Vietnam, made in Thailand, wherever the fuck it is, man. So Esau is playing catch up because Moab already got the assembly line on fucking lockdown and what he needs in his countries. The raw natural resources, everything. But Babylon the Great has become weakened. This is verse 12. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment. There will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Ultimately, we know that you can fast forward to 2nd Ezra. This is how we know the Apocrypha is applicable to the scriptures, because you can jump in to 2nd Esdras 8, Salakia 13 and 8, I do believe. Yep. So this is 2nd Esdras 13. I'm going to go ahead and start at verse 6, because this fast forwards to what that event is going to happen to, pursuing to Joel 3 and 12, that valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. This is 2nd Ezra 13 and 6. I'm going to read through these kind of real quick, and then I'm going to close this lesson out, because the point being is that, I don't want to go too much off topic, but these nations are getting ready because they know that this battle is coming, in the battle of Armageddon. This is 2nd Ezra 13 and 6. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew upon it. That mountain is a representation of how big the chariot is. Verse 7, but I would have, in the mountain, obviously representation of power too. So it was a powerful, vehicle. Verse 7, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. This is Ezra's looking to see where a fucking missing mountain was, man. But there wasn't nothing around. That's how big it was. He was expecting a huge chunk to be missing somewhere, but he couldn't find it. Verse 8, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him, and subdue means to stop, to wrestle someone down. You see a bunch of cops jump on a fucking black man and try to hold him down. They put the fucking neck in their knee, and they're putting their body weight on all their pressure points in their body. They're not going to subdue Yahweh Shai like that. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And that's going to be going into the terror. But the prophecy is going to continue, whether these Edomites are pissing in their pants or not. They're going to continue to fly towards their mark and go to battle against the angelic brethren and Yahweh Shai. Verse 10. Verse 9, Salakia, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. And that's talking about, these are out of this world weapons. This weapon that it's going to describe are laser beams, straight raw power, man. Fire, you can't even describe it in these earthly words, man. How powerful that beam is that's going to come out of those chariots in Yahweh Shai. That's going to be that destroying factor in completely melting and turning these armies to dust. It is, man. 2nd Ezra 13 and 10. But only I saw he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests, which goes a clue that it's a heat, fire, concentrated fire element. Verse 11, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude. That's like a trifecta, of raw power coming at their ass, man. And fell with violence upon the multitude, which was prepared to fight, and burnt them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. And that's ultimately, no matter how much Esau thinks he's preparing by getting his factories ready, getting his different areas in Babylon the Great weaponized towards the war effort, hey man, he's gonna lose, and he's gonna lose very badly. And as we can see in the prophetic scriptures, that we know that no matter what this man prepares to do, he is ultimately going to be taken down. So Trump's Pentagon holds talks with GM and Ford to convert auto plants into weapons factories, echoing World War II. So I just wanted to bring that information out and to tell Esau that it's his efforts are in vain. But you putting up a fight only makes a better, let's say, a cinematic view. Because who wants to see someone getting their ass beat and they're just rolled up in a fetal position? Nah, Esau, get all the shit you can ready. Get all the weapons, get all the top technology, get all the crazy armor-plated vehicles that you can, man. Because ain't nothing going to save you from getting put in those chains. So Lord willing that this lesson was edifying unto the elect. Till next time, I would like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Chadash. Double honors to beloved elders and the apostles at Great Millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful elect Akim out there laboring that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. Till next time, Lord willing, Shalom.